What's up, everyone? Welcome back to First and 15 Fantasy Football Podcast. Thanks for tuning in. If you haven't already, please give us a like, comment, share, or even subscribe to the channel so that we may continue providing you key information for your upcoming draft and season. We will be covering our final team in the AFC West, the Kansas City Chiefs. Let's jump right in. What's up, guys, and welcome back to another episode of Injury Outlook. This time we're going to be getting into our final team of the AFC West, the Kansas City Chiefs. As you know, and as we got into the previous teams, there's going to be some key shakeups happening to these teams that are definitely going to change the outlook and the fantasy landscape of these teams from the prior year. More specifically, obviously, the Broncos with the additions of Russell Wilson, and then also you're going to be having your Las Vegas Raiders with the addition of, a new head coaching system, and Devontae Adams, and then now with your Chiefs, you have the trading away of Tyreek Hill and the addition of some key players to see if it can fill in the void. We're going to see if that ultimately is going to lead, to a different landscape for the Kansas City Chiefs, something that we have not seen before from them, specifically in the Mahomes era. But definitely, let's get into the Kansas City Chiefs. The Kansas City Chiefs were able to finish off the season last year at a 12-5 record, led by Andy Reid. Now, they also finished off the season in 4th passing overall in the NFL, and then 16th overall in rushing in the NFL. We're going to see now with the likes of the additions of Ronald Jones, Jerick McKinnon, and CEH to see if ultimately that's going to lead into more of a well-balanced addition now that you have the trading away of Tyreek Hill and the addition of MVS and Juju. Ultimately, we're going to see if now the offense with Mahomes is going to lead to more distributive offense, and Mahomes will be now distributing the ball more to evenly again amongst these wide receivers. And amongst these wide receivers, we're going to see who ultimately steps up as your wide receiver one. I've got some key thoughts, but before we get into that, let's get into Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes last year, fortunately, was able to stay relatively healthy throughout the entire season. He did not miss any games. He was able to play in all 17 games. He did experience a turf toe injury in the playoffs, but did not miss any games. He did take a big hit in Week 7 in the Titans game, but again, didn't miss any games due to that. Remember and recall that he did have a patellar dislocation in the October of 2019, but fortunately, he did not suffer any significant injuries this last season. He did add, 436 completions at 4,839 yards, adding 37 pass TDs with 2 rush TDs, and also adding 66 rushes at 381 yards. Putting them very well at 414 PPR points. Right now in your redraft leagues, he's going anywhere in between 2nd and 3rd overall in amongst your quarterbacks. And in your best ball leagues, he's going anywhere between your 3rd and your 5th rounds right now. And so we're going to see if ultimately Mahomes is going to continue to grow and lead into a more distributed offense with these Kansas City Chiefs. Now that you have the trading away of Tyreek Hill and the addition of Marquez Valdes-Scantling, Sky Moore, and Juju. And then you also continue to have the success and productivity of Travis Kelce. So again, we're going to continue to see if Patrick Mahomes will ultimately lead this offense to more success during this season. Now, not only are we going to see if the wide receiver core can really be balanced, we're going to see if ultimately the rushing attack can be balanced by CEH with the addition of Jerick McKinnon and Ronald Jones. Now CEH, over the past 2 seasons has been injured significantly and missing significant time throughout the seasons. And so, over the last season, he did miss, relatively 7 games. And then the previous season, he did relatively miss a few games as well. And so I can very well see an opportunity for Ronald Jones to come in, and ultimately, if he's successful in between the tackles and picks up some key blocks throughout the season, I can very well see Ronald Jones taking some very well majority of these carries compared to CEH. But it's something very well to be looking at, something to analyze as the season continues, or as you continue to look at these drafts. Ultimately, CEH right now in your redraft leagues, he's going anywhere between 28th and 29th overall in your as a running back. He's going anywhere in between your 8th and 9th round in your best ball leagues right now, compared to Ronald Jones. Ronald Jones right now is going anywhere in between your 10th and 12th round in your best ball leagues, and he's kind of in your redraft leagues 46th running back overall. So CEH again did miss 7 games last year. We did look at some of these key injuries that he did sustain, and we looked at those analysis. He did sustain an ankle sprain in the preseason. We looked at analysis, and we did anticipate he was not going to miss any games, and he didn't. But then he went on to have an MCL sprain in week 5. He went on to the injured reserve and missed a total of 5 games because of that. We did look at that analysis, and we looked at that injury itself, and we did anticipate that he was going to miss 5 to 6 weeks. He did roughly miss 5 games. And so, and then in week 16, he did miss another couple of games. And so it's always important to be looking at those injury updates throughout the season so that you can continue to make those real-time adjustments throughout the season. But he did, offer at least 19 receptions at 129 yards, adding another 119 rush attempts at 517 yards. Again, we're going to see now with the addition of Ronald Jones coming into play, if that's going to ultimately eat into CEH's opportunities. I could very well see, Ronald Jones becoming your running back 1 for this team, depending again on the very well success of running, the running attack itself. The other key notable running backs for your Kansas City Chiefs was Darrell Williams. Darrell Williams is now traded over to the Arizona Cardinals. Right now in your redraft leagues, he's going anywhere between 58th and 59th overall running back. And he's going anywhere between your 15th and 16th round overall in your best ball leagues. He was able to stay relatively healthy last year. He played in all 17 games. He did suffer a turf toe in week 18, but didn't miss any games, obviously. But he did add, a total of 144 rushes, 558 yards, 47 receptions at 452 yards, adding another 6 total rush TDs and 2 reception TDs. Again, now with the trading away of Darrell Williams and now with the addition of Jerick McKinnon and Ronald Jones, we're going to see if ultimately this running back position continues to be more well-balanced. Jerick McKinnon did re-sign in the offseason. He's going anywhere between your 16th and 17th overall in your redraft leagues right now in your best ball. He is going to be in the mix, but I ultimately see that, Ronald Jones and CEH are going to lead majority of these carries with, Jerick McKinnon kind of sprinkled in, and then ultimately seeing if Ronald Jones is going to be becoming your, running back 1 over CEH. More specifically, if you can get, Ronald Jones ultimately in the 10th or 11th round of your best ball leagues, and if he ultimately becomes your running back 1 over CEH, well then ultimately you made some really good value on that pick. And so look at your drafts and ultimately see where Ronald Jones is going and see if you can make a value pick at that time. But without kind of getting into the other running backs, it's definitely now getting into the wide receivers. Now your wide receivers are a little bit now more mixed up. The trading away of Tyreek Hill makes a big, change in landscape in this team and what this offense is going to look like, specifically in game 1. But again, they did add, some key acquisitions to their wide receiver core. They did add, Juju. They did add MVS, Marquez Valdes-Scantling, and now with the addition of Sky Moore and some other key rookies. But let's get into Juju Smith. And Juju Smith, as you recall, last year did not, finish off the season. He did suffer a significant injury last year. And that injury did, afford him to miss the rest of the season. In week 5 of last year, with the Pittsburgh Steelers, he did suffer a dislocation of his right arm. And when that happened, he did have a fracture of his scapula, or part of his scapula. We call it the glenoid. That requires a surgical repair. And he did have a surgery, and that procedure took place on mid-October of 2021. When you're looking at something like this and this, significant injury, it's going to take several months to recover. More specifically because the labral repair that was done. So it just delays it a little bit. However, with it considering, a 4 to 6 month recovery time period, I expect Juju Smith to be, becoming ready more into the September month. We're going to obviously, be looking at the training camp and looking into preseason to determine how much progress he's made. More specifically, as he starts to be, hit or does get hit on that right shoulder again. So I look to anticipate that Juju Smith is going to, not barring any setbacks, is going to be ready to play for the, Kansas City Chiefs. Again, we'll be looking at those reports to determine that he is making progress and he is making, a more push for that season opener. And so if Juju Smith, very well could, remain healthy, remain, from suffering any significant setbacks this coming season, then very well he can duplicate, in this offense itself. So it's, again, very curious, and I'm very, curious to see what this, offensive, wide receiver core kind of unfolds to. Now, Mikko Hardman is your other Kansas City wide receiver that ultimately stayed with the team, did not get traded away. Mikko Hardman was able to play in roughly all 17 games last year. Again, stayed relatively healthy. He did add, total of 59 receptions at 693 yards, also adding 2 reception TDs. And so he's going right now 63rd overall in your redraft leagues and anywhere in between your 11th and 12th rounds in your best ball leagues. And so we're going to see if Mikko Hardman, and now with the likes of, MBS and Juju, to see and determine if they're going to continue to have a well-balanced wide receiver attack. If you can, Demarcus Robinson is the other wide receiver for your Kansas City Chiefs. He's actually getting traded over to your Las Vegas Raiders. Again, with the, trading away of Tyreek Hill, the trading away of Demarcus Robinson, now you have the wide receiver core of Juju Smith, MVS, and the likes of Sky Moore. Sky Moore, who has been now, increasing his ADP. More specifically, Sky Moore is being taken anywhere in between your 8th and 9th rounds right now overall, and Juju Smith is taken anywhere between your 6th and 7th rounds over on your best ball leagues. I ultimately see that when Sky Moore was being drafted, he was being drafted anywhere between your 9th and 11th rounds, but it's ultimately as you hear more and more about the camp of the Kansas City Chiefs and ultimately seeing how this ball is going to be distributed, and also the the talents of Sky Moore, you ultimately see that Sky Moore is now increasing in his ADP. Again, he's going anywhere in between, again, your 8th and 9th rounds overall. And so it is, going to be a key thing to have, these key acquisitions and wide receivers, have a key eye on them, as training camp unfolds to determine, what this pecking order is going to kind of turn into. But that's going to be doing it for your Kansas City Chiefs. Some key questions are to be had over, the development of training camp and the preseason develops. Is Ronald Jones going to take over, your running back one position over CEH, and he's going to take over a majority of the carries this season? Is Juju Smith and MVS going to be into that wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2 conversation for this team? Or is Sky Moore going to make more of an impression? Is he going to rise it up on your ADP levels right now as he continues to rise in this offense? And then also, as we're going to continue to see Mahomes develop into more distributing the ball evenly amongst these wide receivers, now that you have, the trading away of Tyreek Hill. Again, we're going to see as all this unfolds. We'll continue to give you those updates, as training camp continues to develop and as the season comes to a closer beginning. Again, thank you for tuning in as we finished up the AFC West. We'll be now covering the AFC South on our next Injury Outlook. Please drop a comment, share us your thoughts. We look forward to seeing you again on our next episode of First and 15 Injury Outlook. See you next time.